You're all welcome to today's news analysis. This is not just news. This is about the future of Nigeria. What happened shocked many Nigerians. People hoped the House of Representatives would finally do the right thing. People hoped vote buying would be stopped, fully, clearly, and boldly. But that hope did not last long. Instead of fixing the problem from the root, they chose to protect the same broken system. And now, Peter Obi has spoken. He did not hold back. He called it what it is. A dangerous plan that can ruin the 2027 elections. Let's break it down. Nigerians were watching closely. Many believed the House of Representatives would finally do the right thing. A stand against vote buying. A stand for democracy. Across the country, people were hopeful. Not because miracles were expected, but because the problem was clear. Vote buying has become too open, too bold, too normal. Elections are no longer about ideas. They are no longer about plans. They are no longer about service. They are about cash. Money before conscience. Money before country. The simple expectation was not complicated. Criminalize vote buying from the start. From party primaries. Because that is where everything begins. Before the posters. Before the rallies. Before election day drama. Primaries decide who survives. Primaries decide who gets power. Primaries decide who Nigerians are allowed to vote for. If primaries are corrupt, the entire process is already dead. That is why many Nigerians waited. That is why many paid attention. But then, the decision came. The House of Representatives refused. Just like that, hope collapsed. This was not an accident. This was not confusion. This was a choice. A clear choice to protect a broken system. A system that rewards money, not merit. Peter Obi reacted immediately. And his message was simple, but heavy. You cannot fix a house by ignoring its foundation. You cannot talk about free elections when the door is already locked by money. He made it clear. Credible elections do not start on election day. They start long before that. At the point where parties choose candidates. Once money controls that stage, everything else becomes a lie. Ballot papers become decoration. Campaign promises become noise. Voting becomes theater. Because the winner has already been decided. Peter Obi said Nigeria must stop pretending. Vote buying is not politics. It is corruption. And corruption, once accepted, spreads fast. He warned that refusing to act now will only make the problem harder later. Because once people get used to buying power, they will never let go peacefully. This is why the refusal is dangerous. This is why it matters. When leaders refuse to block corruption early, they are not neutral. They are enabling it. Peter Obi stressed that democracy cannot survive this way. A system where money decides leadership is not democracy. It is a marketplace. And in a marketplace, the poor never win. He said this decision sends a clear signal that the political class is more interested in protecting itself than protecting Nigeria's future. This is not about one party. This is not about one election. This is about the direction of the country. If vote buying is allowed at the base, then nothing above it can be clean. No court case can fix it. No observer report can save it. Because the damage is already done. Peter Obi's warning was strong. He said progress cannot be built on inducement. Nationhood cannot be built on bribery. You cannot demand honesty from citizens when leaders reward dishonesty. You cannot preach integrity while legalizing corruption by silence. This is how trust dies. And when trust dies, people stop believing. They stop participating. They stop caring. That is the real danger. Not anger. Not noise. But silence. Peter Obi said Nigeria is standing at a line. One side leads to reform. The other leads to full collapse of values. Refusing to stop vote buying at primaries is choosing the wrong side. It is choosing convenience over courage. Power over principle. And once that choice is made, history will remember it. Because nations rise. When leaders act early, nations fall. When leaders look away. This decision was not small. It was not harmless. It was a signal. And Nigerians saw it clearly. Peter Obi did not rush his words. He spoke calmly, but firmly. Because this issue is deeper than one vote in the House. He explained that vote buying is no longer hiding. It is no longer whispered about. It is now open and proud. People expect it. People plan for it. And that is the real danger. When corruption becomes normal, people stop fighting it. Peter Obi said this culture did not start today. But it has grown because leaders failed to stop it early. Every election cycle, it becomes worse. More money. More pressure. More silence. He warned that when politics becomes a cash game, only one group benefits. Those with access to money and power. The rest are pushed aside. Ideas do not matter. Track records do not matter. Character does not matter. Only money matters. And once that lesson is learned, it spreads beyond politics. Peter Obi pointed out something disturbing. Vote buying has moved into everyday life. Town union elections. Village meetings. Clubs and associations. Even student elections. Young people now see it as strategy. They see it as smart play. Not a shame. He said this is how societies decay. Slowly. Quietly. Not through war. Not through chaos. But through acceptance of wrong things. When children grow up watching leaders buy power, they learn the wrong lessons. They learn that rules are flexible. They learn that money is stronger than values. And they carry that mindset everywhere. Peter Obi said Nigeria is paying a heavy price for this silence. People no longer believe elections can change anything. So they disengage. They stay at home. They lose hope. And when good people leave the process, bad people take full control. That is how systems collapse. He said stopping vote buying is not about punishment alone. It is about rebuilding trust. People must believe their votes matter. People must believe fairness still exists. But that belief cannot grow if corruption is allowed at the beginning. Peter Obi stressed that party primaries are critical. They shape the future long before the general election. If that stage is compromised, the rest is only formality. You cannot wash dirty water by pouring it into a clean cup. The water remains dirty. He warned that delaying reform is a dangerous habit. Nigeria often waits until problems explode before reacting. But by then, the damage is already deep. Vote buying is now woven into the system. Removing it later will be harder. More painful. That is why he insists. The fight must begin early. At the root. Peter Obi also spoke about responsibility. He said leaders must lead by example. You cannot demand discipline from a society you mislead. You cannot expect fairness when the system rewards shortcuts. He made it clear that this is not an attack on individuals. It is a warning about direction. Where Nigeria is heading if these practices continue unchecked. He said democracy is not just voting. It is trust. It is fairness. It is equal opportunity. Once money takes control, democracy loses meaning. It becomes survival of the richest. Peter Obi said Nigeria is too important to be reduced to that. Too diverse. Too talented. Too full of promise. But promise alone is not enough. Action is required. He said silence is also a choice. And history does not forgive silence. Those who refuse to act become part of the problem. He urged Nigerians to pay attention. Not just during elections, but during decisions like this. Because laws shape behavior. And weak laws encourage abuse. If vote buying is not clearly condemned, it will continue to grow. Not because people love it, but because it works. And as long as it works, it will be used. Peter Obi's message was steady. Not emotional. Not dramatic. But serious. Nigeria must decide what kind of democracy it wants. One driven by conscience. Or one controlled by cash. That choice, he said, cannot be delayed forever. Because every delay pushes the country further away from the Nigeria it hopes to become. Peter Obi's concern did not stop at vote buying. He went further. He connected the dots. He warned Nigerians to look at the pattern. Not just one issue at a time. According to him, when a system becomes careless with integrity, it shows up everywhere. In elections. In laws. In governance. This was where he raised the issue of the tax law. Peter Obi said Nigerians must be very careful when laws passed by representatives do not remain the same afterward. He pointed to reports that a tax law, after approval, appeared different from what was agreed on. Not a small difference. A serious one. A clause that gives power to claim a citizen's property for failure to pay tax. Peter Obi made his position clear. Tax is not the problem. Every serious country collects tax. Every responsible citizen should pay tax. But the process matters. The trust matters. He said when laws are altered quietly, without open debate, citizens begin to fear the system. And fear is dangerous in a democracy. Because a government should serve the people, not scare them. Peter Obi warned that this kind of action creates uncertainty. People begin to ask questions. If this can be changed, what else can be changed tomorrow? If approval means nothing, what protects the ordinary citizen? He said democracy relies on clarity, on openness, on respect for process. Once those things are weakened, everything else becomes unstable. Peter Obi linked this issue directly to the vote buying problem. He said both come from the same root. A culture that places power above principle. A culture that believes ends justify means. Whether it is buying votes or altering laws, the message is the same. Rules can bend if power demands it. Peter Obi said Nigeria must reject that mindset. He warned that when people lose trust in elections and lose trust in laws, they lose faith in the nation itself. That is when frustration grows. That is when unity weakens. And that is when progress stops. He said reforms cannot be selective. You cannot fix one area while ignoring another. Integrity must be total. From how candidates emerge, to how laws are written, to how policies are enforced. Anything less is hypocrisy. Peter Obi stressed that leadership requires restraint. Power must have limits. When leaders begin to test how far they can go, the country pays the price. He reminded Nigerians that history is full of examples. Nations do not collapse suddenly. They erode slowly. Through small compromises. Through ignored warnings. Through repeated excuses. Peter Obi said this is one of those moments when Nigeria must pause and reflect. Not with anger, but with honesty. What kind of country are we building? One where money decides leadership? One where laws can change without notice? Or one where fairness is protected, even when it is inconvenient? He said a true democracy does not fear scrutiny. It welcomes it. It does not silence critics. It listens to them. Peter Obi made it clear that his words were not meant to attack, but to warn. Warnings are not insults. They are opportunities. He said Nigeria still has a choice, but that choice requires courage. Courage to say no to bad practices, even when they benefit the powerful. Courage to reform systems before they destroy trust completely. Peter Obi said the future of Nigeria cannot be built on shortcuts. Shortcuts always lead to dead ends. He reminded Nigerians that countries that succeed do not do so by accident. They succeed because they protect their processes, their elections, their laws, their institutions. He said Nigeria has the people. It has the talent. It has the resources. What it lacks is consistent integrity at the top. That gap, he warned, cannot be ignored forever. Because when leaders fail to act rightly, the consequences spread to everyone. Prices rise. Jobs disappear. Security weakens. And citizens pay the price for decisions they did not make. Peter Obi ended with a clear statement. Nigeria is not beyond repair. But repair requires truth. And truth requires action. Vote buying must stop at the root. Laws must reflect what was approved. Power must respect limits. He said the future must not be auctioned. Not through cash. Not through fear. Nigeria must choose integrity over convenience. Because once a nation sells its values, it loses its direction. And without direction, no country can move forward. Peter Obi's final message was simple, but heavy. A new Nigeria is possible, but only if Nigerians insist on doing things right from the very beginning.